Hi, I'm Dr. Jo'Anne Langham, and I'm going to be talking to you today about what it means to think and to act like a designer. As soon as you tell people that you are a designer, they immediately get an image in their mind's eye and have impressions of who you are and what you do. Most think you look like this, or like this. They also believe certain things about what you do and your skills. These are common misperceptions about design, such as that you're an IT person, that you spend your day drawing, or alternatively, that you are bad at coding. Part of the reason is that design is often confused with art. It is not something that only those blessed with an innate talent or a level of genius can do. Design is foremost about problem solving. You do not do design for the sake of design. It is usually done because there is some chasm that needs to be crossed or some mountain that needs to be climbed, and we need to build that bridge or that helicopter to get to the top. For most of us, creative genius does not come with a flash of brilliance in the middle of the night that has the right solution to our problem. It is instead a process and an attitude that we use to explore, build insight, and test our ideas. Design is a structured, repeatable process that uses techniques to challenge our biased way of thinking. Design thinking is often talked about as being common sense. That too is a myth. It is, if anything, the opposite. Common sense is based on the knowledge that we have built up and the rules of thumb that we use to make fast or split decisions. These rules of thumb are very good for survival, but they are not so good for innovating or creating something new. We use tools or methods in design to challenge our thinking and overcome inherent cognitive bias created by perceptions and our understanding of the world. And boy, do we have a lot of biases and blocks. Here are some examples of visual illusions. First, we have a famous picture used in studying illusions. I believe this was first published in the Life magazine in 1965. Can you see the Dalmatian? Once you see it, you can never unsee it. And if you ever encounter this image again, you will immediately see the Dalmatian again. What's interesting is that the visual stimulus, that is the picture, doesn't change. But once your mind knows what kind of organisation to impose, it's obvious that the Dalmatian is there. There is also the Muller-Lyer illusion, which is a famous example of contextual biasing. The two horizontal lines are the same length, but the outward pointing fins cause our visual system to see the top line as longer than the line with inward pointing fins. Optical illusions trick us because our visual system does not use accurate methods to perceive the world. Our perceptions guide our filtering process, so they limit what we pay attention to. This affects how we navigate physical spaces, but also digital spaces like websites. How many black dots can you see? Well, despite what your eyes are telling you, there are no black dots. There are only white dots that appear to darken in the periphery of your vision. This is an example of scintillating grid illusion. In the early 20th century, a group of German psychologists sought to explain how human visual perception works. They observed and catalogued many visual phenomena. One of the basic findings was that human vision is holistic. That is, our visual system automatically imposes structure on visual input and is wired to perceive whole shapes, figures, and objects, rather than disconnected edges, lines, and areas. The German word for shape or figure is Gestalt, so these theories became known as the Gestalt principles. We are wired to see the world around us in terms of whole objects. Our ability to perceive the world around us means that we can be easily influenced or confused with the way information is presented to us. There are also other kinds of illusions, such as auditory illusions. After this session, go and listen to some of these crazy illusions on YouTube. There are also many other ways our minds are tricked by perception, past experience, or our senses. You can think of our brains using two systems, one that is fast, that helps us make decisions super fast. The other is more deliberative, and we use this to think through problems. There are many books that you can read on the way that we misunderstand the world around us. Our brains process this information to help us make decisions. Consequently, our brains create blocks to also help us manage the complexity of the world. These blocks help us survive, but they also lead us to misperception of the world around us. These blocks can inhibit our thinking. There are many examples of cognitive biases. Here are a few. There are also many more. So why design? Design is not common sense. It is not. It's exactly the opposite. There are a few areas in life where everyone thinks that they're an expert. Baking chocolate chip cookies, strangers telling pregnant women the gender of their unborn child, adding product features, and designing a great user experience, amongst others. Why are these areas particularly crowded with experts? Because they are fairly accessible topics which most of us have opinions on. Opinions informed by our own experiences, which therefore means they must be right, right? The problem is your experience is not everyone else's. And what's obvious to you may not be obvious to, well, anyone else. Building a product is hard. Designing a product is hard. Creating something that people love, very, very challenging. A good user experience depends on so much more than a single person's experience. It requires understanding principles of behavioral psychology, habit formation, and sometimes gamification. It relies on a deep understanding of your core demographic, which in turn depends on the depth and detail of the user personas and the use cases you've researched and crafted. It means setting the right framework for user testing and asking smart questions to avoid biased results. Design is used to overcome mental or cognitive blockers. Cognitive biases are there to help us make decisions quickly, provide us with simple ways to shortcut decision-making in a complex world. But these biases also make it easy for us to jump to logical conclusions that are not necessarily going to help us innovate. Well, design is the tool that we use to overcome our thinking bias to help us create solutions that don't just deal with the obvious, the illusion, the symptom in a problem, or be influenced or distracted. Design is a way of helping us solve problems to overcome our thinking limitations. That is why design.